All right. So my name is Ryan Otani. I'm from Huntington Beach. And what me and my mentor Jerry studied was how virtual reality therapy can affect Parkinson's disease patients. And the reason that I chose this topic is because Parkinson's disease is one of the most common neurodegenerative diseases in America, and it's also one of the least understood. So we want, and there's also no cure. So we wanted to help make treatment better for these patients suffering from such a devastating disease. So the question we have to answer is virtual reality therapy superior to traditional physical therapy? And to start this, we need to figure out what exactly is Parkinson's disease. So Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder that primarily affects coordinated movement, and it's caused when nerve cells in the basal ganglia die or become impaired, and this causes them to produce less dopamine. And to this day, doctors don't really know what causes these cells to die. But what we do know is that the lack of dopamine is what causes movement problems in this disease process. So people who have Parkinson's disease typically lose nerve endings that produce norepinephrine, and norepinephrine controls bodily functions like heart rate and blood pressure. And the lack of this norepinephrine can help explain why patients often feel fatigue and have irregular blood pressure. And then also presynaptic proteins known as alpha synuclein proteins can clump together to form what's known as Lewy bodies, and this can affect your memory. And then although some cases are hereditary, most cases typically don't run throughout families, but the disease is still caused from genetics and can also be caused from environmental factors like pollution. And then bottom line is that Parkinson's disease has no cure, but there are treatments available to improve the quality of life, and that's what we're aiming to do with this research. So symptoms, physical manifestations. It's the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. 500,000 Americans are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and many are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. So this shows us that this number is likely much higher. And then most people who get Parkinson's disease typically get it after the age of, after the age of 60, but it is like 10% can get it at 50, and it's possible to get even before then. And then the main symptoms are tremor, slow movements, and stiff muscles. And we'll get more into that right now. Tremor impacts 75% of patients. And the most common tremor is the pill rolling tremor. And it looks like they're holding like a die in their hand and they're rolling it between their fingers. That's the pill rolling tremor. It's most common. And then another symptom is freezing of gait. It's an episodic system where a person can't make forward progress despite trying to walk. And once again, it's also very misunderstood. We don't know much about it. And it's one of the most devastating symptoms of the disease. And 63% of people with idiopathic Parkinson's disease experience freezing of gait. And then more symptoms. Bradykinesia is the slowing of movement. Once again, it's not fully understood. And then rigidity is present in 89% of subjects. And it's just where movements aren't very fluid. You have it's what the term says, rigid movements. And then there's also non-motor symptoms such as psychosis. So there are current treatments. Physical therapy. This includes moderate to high intensity aerobic exercises, resistance training, balance training, just trying to get your function back, just typical physical therapy. And then there's also community-based training, which is helpful because being with a bunch of people can help your internal psyche through the rehabilitation process. And then also there's occupational therapy, which can include things like just learning how to write again, getting those basic tasks of everyday living back. So how can we improve upon this? So here's the first study, virtual reality versus physical therapy to improve the rehabilitation process. So in this study, there's 28 patients. It's a single blinded, it's randomized. There's one experimental group who gets virtual reality and therapy, and one control group that receives physical therapy. And they use 4 measures to gauge whether or not virtual reality is significantly better than physical therapy. They use the Berg Balance Scale, the Timed Up and Go test, third part of Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, and the Functional Gait Assessment. And then for the traditional group, they receive balance, strength, rhythm, and walking training, just typical physical therapy. And the virtual reality group got much more stimulating activity. So if you look at the figure, you can kind of see their schedule. So if you look right after the warm-up, their first activity, hands and feet touch the ball. A ball will appear in different parts of the screen, and they use their upper and lower extremities to try and reach for the ball. And that, yeah. And then the next one, I feel like it's pretty interesting. It's using your upper body to boat while keeping balance to prevent your body from falling into the water. So just much more stimulating. And then the maze, just the maze right here, walking in different directions until you're out of the maze. And then here we can see like how this helps the same parts as just normal physical therapy. It's just better. And then it is better because they found that Berg balance scale, timed up and go test, and the functional gait assessment improved significantly in the virtual reality group compared to that of the physical therapy group. Another study had 30 patients, two groups of 15, and the experimental group had a mix of augmented reality and virtual reality combined with traditional training. And then the control group was only given traditional training. Once again, use multiple measures: third part of unified Parkinson's disease rating scale, Berg balance scale, activity specific balance confidence scale, spatiotemporal gait parameters, timed up and go test. And yeah, so normal group just gets traditional physical therapy, but I think this is really interesting. These images right here, you can see the guys walking like a ball track, auditory cueing where he hears things, and then he walking through a nature island, the Italian Alps, walking on stones, ram stepping stones, obstacle avoidance, speed adaptation. There's one right here where he's skiing, and then one where he's something about monsters. And then, so yeah, it's much more engaging. And once again, they found that the third part of unified Parkinson's disease rating scale, Berg balance scale, activity specific balance confidence scale, spatiotemporal gait parameters, and timed up and go test significantly improved in the study group compared to that of the control group. Now with this, there's also a lot of limitations to the research, mainly just there needs to be more research and better studies done. A study that used articles from the Cochrane Movement Disorders Group Trials Register, the Cochrane Central Register of Controlled Trials, Medline, Embase, Sinhal, and the Physiotherapy Evidence Database. And they found that while virtual reality can improve step and stride length, gait, balance, and quality of life in Parkinson's disease patients, the evidence is low quality, and like the evidence needs to be statistically better. And then in another study, they used randomized controlled trials from PubMed, Embase, and Cochrane libraries. And they used this long measure called Assessing the Methodological Quality of Systematic Reviews 2, or AMSTAR 2. And they had like a process where they had 500 articles and they identified 12. They did that. And then they found that they were all low to moderate quality, but only one of them was of moderate quality. So that shows that just these articles on this topic they're not what we need them to be, and we need more research done. So this kind of leads into the conclusion of, while virtual reality seems to have a promising future in Parkinson's disease rehabilitation, more research needs to be done in order to better gauge its effectiveness. And the data we have suggests that VR is more effective than traditional physical therapy. So yeah, we just need more research. And then, yeah, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yeah, there's a question in the Q&A. Ryan, this is so cool. I'm curious, what does access look like in terms of cost or having space? Is this something people could do from home?
Yes, there is another study actually where they did it from home. They had like a balance board, and they could use like step on the balance board with the virtual reality to there was one where they were like cooking by leaning. There was one where they were making a ball go through a maze. So yes, it can definitely be done from home.
Awesome. Okay, so then what do you think, like what are the next steps that how virtual reality could help? If it's helping Parkinson's, can it help people with other diseases, things like that? Like what do you think the future is like for using virtual reality with this?
I think it definitely can help. It just needs to, if a disease impacts someone's balance, gait, or function, then definitely it could help. Yeah, Parkinson's isn't the only disease that impacts those things, but we decided to focus on it.
Okay, one last question. What was the most interesting thing you learned from your project?
I just thought the most interesting thing was the games they developed. Some of them were really creative, like the one with the skiing and the monsters game. I thought that was really interesting.
Okay, awesome. Well, very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your project with us. Okay.